Welcome to my streak, you know the drill, and I'm gonna play some puzzles here. So what's the first one? Just 94 and take on c2. Here we take and then take on f4. Here it's bishop b4 and then bishop d6. Just give me a second, something is wrong. I don't know what's wrong, but let's go g4 and do this. Now it's fine. And I can continue with capturing a rook in the end. Oh, this looks tempting, but there's much better. This bishop b7 looks good, and if you attack my bishop, I take and then move back to d7 to defend. Here we can do something nice. Queen e2 check, forcing the king to disconnect the rooks, and then you take on f1, king b2, queen f4, and then knight on g5 hangs. I would say that's the correct way. And that's true. Check. If king f1, knight f4 is very strong. And then e2 hangs. If you don't defend it, I take it. Which happens here. Alright, we take and we fork. Take and take on e6. Now, if there's no knight on g6, there would be checkmate on h7. So we go here and give a checkmate. We take this one, pick up the pawn, knight f6. What is that? We take on d5, or is it something else? I think we take and then take on e8. Or, for example, if you go to e6, then you go rook e5 and then take on e8. So he has to go to c7, but then we take on e8 and descending is winning. Okay, maybe queen b2 simply, and on bishop b3, king a3. Yeah, check, and then rook e2. But let's see. If I give a check, white goes to h2. Rook e2, queen f5, rook takes d2. Oh no, rook takes d2 would be a mistake. Queen e6 and knight d7. So you take with the queen, and I think you escape checks. Queen c8, king f7, queen d7, rook e7. Yeah. Simple as that. And yeah, here you need to capture with the queen to At least keep one defensive piece, which will be a rook on e2, which might come to e7. And also covering 96 is very useful, so you need to keep the rook where it is. Okay, this connection has to be broken. F5 and then you take on d7. Has to be broke. Rook h8, luring the king to capture it. If king g6, there's gonna be queen g4 mate. So this is why he takes, and we have queen f8 and finally mate. What happens here? Takes, rook f7 and then pick it up. Here something like bishop e4 looks very good. You take on b7 next move and we win. Win. g4, f5 and so on to create a passed pawn. If you take on g5, you're unable to create a passed pawn, so you need to go f5. If you take it, then the king will simply pick up all the pawns and you don't have any way to create a passed pawn, so f5. Give a check, pick the pawn up and then exchange. Rook f1 looks great. King h2 and bishop f4. Or if queen takes f1, bishop e3. And then you take on f1. Alright, this one gotta be this, and queen takes b2. Capturing on c3 or taking a rook. Whoa. Take d6, bishop e6, a5, king d5, and you go after the a pawn while bishop keeps the d pawn. But yeah, you gotta take it and then first stop the d pawn and do the rest. Check, bishop g1, and then you take on e4. This looks like luring the queen to c8 onto a fork on d6. And it is free rook. Now there's no defender on e1, so we can give a checkmate. Oh, what is that? Rook h2 maybe. Takes. Go here. King g2 or king h3, it doesn't make a difference. If king g3, queen h3, and if king f2, then you go g3 and pick up the queen. And if it goes to f4, then queen f3 is made. This one seems like you're trapping the knight. Exchange queens, go g3, and the knight has nowhere to go except to sacrifice itself for 2 pawns, but that's fine by me. queen b7 here. And then take. Queen g1. I don't like this move because it allows black to activate very aggressively, but so does. Wait a second. Here queen g5, king e2. What do you play here? Rook c4 maybe, but then b7. But yeah, if you go king d3, there's gonna be some issue with queen d4 and queen c5. So, nah, I'm not a big fan of that. I would go for queen f2, queen g5, and king e2. Rook c4. Well, you just go b7 and you queen. I think it's that. I don't think something like this works. Although I could see it work, like queen g5, king c2, but my intuition tells me that it's a little bit sketchy. And that with queen f2 I'm at least keeping an eye on the rook. So queen f2, queen g5, king e2, rook c4, b7, and what do you even play? Queen c1, but I queen, and I don't see a way for black to perpetualize. Oh, plus with king d2 or king d3, there's gonna be queen d6 maybe and rook d4 with unclear consequences, I think. So it better be queen f2. And then king e2. This is a, I would say, much easier move to make, because on king d3 you're kind of getting your king in the open, allow e4 and other stuff which are not very pleasant, or just queen f5 check, rook d4 next. So I would go for this and then push b7. Promote. This is mate in 3. Check, check, and mate. Check. Takes queen g2, king h4. Check on h2. King g5, queen h6. And that looks over. Okay. Wow. Well, I hear go and pick up the pawn on g3. I would go for that. So wait, I'm going up the board, but wait, what is that? Bishop takes g8 and now bishop c4. A bishop f5. Oh, my bad. Just go g4. Rook takes rook f1, and you pick up a rook. If he covers, you take with a check, and then rook on h3 hangs anyways. So just g4. And then rook f1. Okay, this one. What the hell is this one? Rook a7 and no help, I guess. Yeah, now you have to clear the d5 square for the king, but in doing so you're gonna lose the knight on c4. So when you double on the 7th rank, rook e7 comes next, but... And the only way for black to save against this is bishop e4, or some other bishop move. But you see here, in these three cases, bishop is lost. In this case, knight is lost, so black will lose a piece. f5 and rook e7, but why f5? Well, if you go f5, I take. And this is defended twice. Thrice. So we go rook a7. And then you take. Okay. What do you say here? What is the move? What would you play here? Queen g7 would be nice, but it doesn't work. Queen g5, attacking the knight. Also feels a bit slow. Knight g6, and you're covering the g file. And yes, here you have a nice detail. So bishop g7, king g8, you said bishop f6, but there's bishop g4. Counter check. So you can improve on that by simply capturing on e5 and removing the defender of g4. And now bishop g4 is not such a big deal, because you take on g4, and after queen takes, rook takes, knight has to cover, but then black simply loses too much material, and he will be like, what? Well, he will get checkmated as well. I mean, you take with the bishop on g7 and bishop f6. So this, bishop e5, queen g4. Oh no, you take with the rook, but somehow I imagined that king was on h8. But you got my point. What's happening here? We have some X-ray attack on e5. So if the rook moves from f4, we can take this knight on e5, and this is why we can take on f8. On rook f8, bishop e5. And then there's no defense against checkmate. If you go king g7, we can go queen g8 and give a checkmate. So that is that. Take the bishop and take the knight. Yes. I can sense a slight delay in in the chat. So maybe just to slow down a little bit, it would be nicer to slow down. Well, here if you go bishop h2 and white takes, you can take on f1 and deflect the king from defending the queen. So if you go king g2, then rook f2 with queen h2 mate. If you go king h1, now we have to decide which discovered check to give. This diagonal is very vulnerable right now. Every single square on this diagonal has less defenders than it should. So we can go to d6 to get to c5. And now you can see e3 only has one defender, it needs two. d4 also has one defender, needs two. f2 has three defenders but needs four. And this is why bishop d6 is the right choice. So bishop h2, king h1, bishop d6, and bishop c5. And if you go, let's say, after check king g1, bishop c5, rook f2, you take with the bishop and king has to go to f1, but then you're an exchange up. And also the king is in danger. Let's say bishop c5 back, king e2, and rook f2. Winning the queen, and that's it. Bishop h2, rook f1. Well, I cannot do that quickly. What exactly do you need to get better at? Rook e8 and then threatening this and preparing f7, because if you go f7 immediately, he goes king g7 and that's it. The pawn is stopped and nothing happens. But if you go rook e8, the king has to react, or you have to push the g pawn. But then you push f7 and f8 is ready. So we can do that. On g5 we don't react like this. Just he's gonna play king g6 and he's gonna keep the pawn. So we push. We don't care about his business. Alright, this one is also straightforward. Knight c6. Check. The king has to go to a8 and now you give a checkmate. Oh. What is this? Maybe it's something like rook b2, king c5, knight d6, with threat like knight b7 or rook b5. But it's crucial to defend this rook on f7. Other knight moves also threaten rook b5, but they don't defend rook on f7, so you need to do both. Rook b2, and if king a5, let's say, then maybe even then knight to d6. But I wouldn't be so sure. But all in all, you have to take on b2 because he's gonna play b3 instead. Otherwise, and it doesn't look like I'm getting any checkmating net. But here I don't see a clear path. King a5, take, to take or not to take. Take on b2, king a5. Take on a2, king b4. And now there has to be some quick fix, like, well, maybe just knight to d6 again and some slow death. I don't know, let's take it and knight d6. I guess he's gonna go queen d8 and king d8, king d6, but that's a piece up. Plus there's a g-pawn. But before I go, I want to see what's wrong with my calc. So king a5. I wouldn't be surprised if I missed some checkmate in 2 or... So rook a2, this is how it begins. Rook b2, king a5 and knight d6. Oh. And what if I go here? Oh, you cannot go back to a4 because of this mechanism. Oh. That's nice. On king a6, king c7. Damn. Or just rook b8 and pick the queen up. Okay. Nice to see this. And oh, you want to go, let's say, some random move. Well, not this random move, but again, rook b5 and the same stuff. But if you go rook d1, there's also this checkmate. Rook a2 here. Oh no, sorry. I thought a5 wins, but this is first check, king a5, rook a2, and this checkmate. Okay, 49. Takes e4. Looks good. Looks good. Takes, and now if I push, he has bishop c3 and he defends against my pawn. But we can be patient and go king c4, stopping bishop c3, and then pushing a2. And you can see that The king on g5 is quite a klutz for the bishop. It doesn't allow him to get to f6. So yeah, we take king c4 and we can push. Where is this? Mate in 2? Just take and go g5. Oh, what is that? Takes. I'm confused. Oh, takes and a6. Yeah, because you cannot take on g5 immediately. Knight c7 is a problem. And you go a6. And now you have to pick. Do you want to save the bishop or the knight on b5? He didn't want to pick, so it's the end. What if I queen? He queens. King g7. Checks are no more. Yeah, I got a queen because he's gonna queen with check, so there's no move like that makes more sense. If you go king g7, then well, I can go queen d3 maybe and stop this pawn. So let's promote. Take it. Wow. Wait, what am I missing here? If I give a check... Oh, I just give a check with the queen. Oh. Tough day. Then you exchange queens, take on f4. And in the end, knight on knight on f7 hangs. Mate in 1. Wow. Didn't expect so late. Just push the p. d4, b6, take, b7, c2, b8 queen, c1 queen. Ah, maybe it's a8 queen to take on a1. I don't have time to take because he pushes c pawn and he's too quick, so I have to do the dirty job. So b6, dc, b7, c2. b8 queen. Sorry. a8 queen. Rook g1. King h2. yeah, somehow you can escape the checks. If rook h1, the king goes to g3. Because if you take this rook at any moment, he promotes. Ah, but you have g3 and queen g2. What to think about this? But also you could be chiller with king h2, and that's pretty clean, I would say. d3. Oh god. Well, let's push, and that will do the job. Takes. Queen g8, queen f3 to defend the bishop, bishop g4. Looks good. I mean, not ideal, but it will work. Baka, what's up? Let's go rook g2, because anything else doesn't make sense. Okay. g4, king g5, rook e5. If king f4, rook f5. If king h4, rook takes h5. Sounds good. Oh, look at this beauty. Can you find it? This is so nice. What do you say? We start with check. We are 2 rooks down, but black is unlucky. Knight f6, king g7, and now we don't have enough to take on f8. But we can see that there's potential fork on f8 on e8, so we promote to a knight. And then that's how we win it. I hope it's not auto promote. Okay. Nice. Wait, what? This pawn is very dangerous, so we have to push our 2 pawns as soon as possible. Knight f5. Knight f5, a3, g7. Well, first of all, if you push your pawn until the end, g8 queen, a1 queen, queen g6 check, king e5, and now you have a skewer. Queen g7 and we pick up the queen. So if we remove the arrows, knight f5, a3, g7, if king f7, then the h-pawn runs, and yeah, it will run to h6, to h7, and that will be it. I see nothing else. So let's go for this. Oh, the d-pawn runs. Well, that's lovely. But I still push g7, and what you gonna do? Oh boy. d4. d4, d3. King c3, bishop b4, king c4, d2. Looks winning. Has to be winning. Just to answer to playing since 9:04. I'm offline on Twitch, but I'm online on YouTube. I am live on YouTube, not on Twitch. If you're listening. Minitrop YouTube, hello. Oh god, what is that? I think yeah, just to feed the master. I know. d2, rook g7, king h8. That's alright. Yeah, first of all, you don't have a lot of options here. If you push c3, king d3 blocks the pawns, and or not even that. Rook h3, just covering d3. No, I was being sarcastic. Very often it doesn't. People don't pick up that, but it's my fault. Yes, candidates for what? Bishop b4. Nasty. And then d2. I don't think I have rook e2, which would be nice, but... Oh, but wait, if I go rook e2, what does he play? Ah, he can just go rook g1 and on check... King c4, d2... Rook d1, I guess, and then rook e1 is met with rook h1, so... Bishop b4 looks possible. Looks winning, not possible. d2 here, there, and then just push. Candidates for president of Belgrade. No. If I'm gonna turn out like some people, please don't. Rook e2. No, just first d2. God damn it. And then take it. Cool. Why is this so easy? Bishop c7. Bishop c7 and then take with the rook to keep defending d8. I'm confused. You would take that risk. Oh, I'm touched, but be careful who you trust. The difference is when bishop takes, it doesn't cover d8, and white can promote on the next move. And then I guess, if I recall position correctly, it's a draw. But with rook takes, then two pieces defend d8, and that's why you take with the rook, to keep control over d8. Here I think we take and then push, because if I push immediately, I believe there's some problem with that. You don't say. There's a problem with that. But what exactly? Why? Wait. You can always blackmail to publish a game. Or the recent one when I made the draw. Maybe it's knight f6 and then on e7 you would just take on d7 and play this ending. Yeah. So yeah, you take on e4, take and go e6. My record was 148. But on my profile it says 133 or 32. I don't know why I didn't record, but I'm not gonna cry about it again. It was a late night one, we don't take those. Okay. I appreciate that. Take that. Push. Push. Promote. Queen d5, king goes to h8, and now we use the back rank issues. We take on a8. Rook takes, rook d8. And we be winning. Queen d5. Boom. Well, I don't know what to say. I would play this move. I would play this move, and when you take it, Queen e1, King h2, Queen e5, and then you take a rook. Well, if you move a knight to either f4 or e3, then rook on c8 hangs, and you don't have enough material to give a checkmate. I think at best you can give some perpetual, maybe. Oh no, but then no, you don't have it. The rook covers everything. But maybe, let's say, knight e3, queen c8, king h7. But still, bishop b4 will stop queen e1. So yeah, you take on c5. He can override this check by giving this check, but king h7 still doesn't defend on b2, so I would say this works. Rook c5, also there's no check on b8. Queen takes b8 and wins. So rook c5. And then take on b2. Here, the first move that pops to mind is c3, but knight b4 stops the pawn, stops our pawn, and allows his pawn to just march. And then the king will get closer, eventually pick up this pawn, not to d2, but something like this. And the game finishes in a draw, if we have resources. Because at the moment his king will be more active than ours, so it's a question if we'll survive. So we have to stop the knight from reaching b4, and we can do it by knight d3. The king is still so far from the pawn, so if he goes king f1, we push, king e2, c2, and you cannot stop the pawn. And the knight on the edge doesn't have a good way to get back in the game. Knight c7 is too slow, c3, and you just push. You don't have time to get to b3. So I'd go for knight d3 and... oh. What happens here? We have a pin. We can take on b3 and we have to discuss queen e8 check. King h7. Now rook on f3 is attacked, so queen has to go back to h5. We go g6 to cut off some squares. Queen g4 is the only way to defend the rook, and then we go h5. Cutting the last square possible for queen to defend the rook on f3, and there's no check on d7. I mean, there is, but we can take that. So this looks right. Queen g4, yeah. G6, h5, and then queen takes. Oh, what do we have here? Takes, and then b5. Because the only piece defending the bishop is this knight. If I move it, then the bishop is lost. If I play b5 immediately, then the queen can still defend the bishop, and white first takes on d8 when queen takes or whatever, knight moves to a5, and bishop is saved. So first we have to dislodge the queen from the second rank, and then play b5. b5, and that's it. Whoa, what is that? Bishop f3, maybe? But then bishop g3. Oh, but then I take on d1. Hello, Yanis. How you doing? Now, from now on, you're Yanis. Sorry, but... Yeah, maybe you just take on f3 and on bishop g3 take on d1, rook d1, queen g4, and you attack this rook, you attack e6, and yeah, you have quite some nice pawns on the queen side. But what I haven't discussed is what happens if you take on f3. If you take twice on f3, king g1, I was hoping I have rook e2 in the end. And okay, you have one check, but king h8, and the king is quite safe, and you gotta give up a queen by queen e2, but then you have 5 pawns versus 3, and queen and the rook versus 2 rooks and the bishop. So if you count the points, black is in big advantage. It's a cool name. Okay, then I don't feel bad. Bishop f3, bishop g3, bishop e1. You cannot take a queen because of rook e1. Back rank stuff. So what else do we have? You cannot pin the queen by queen f1 because again I take on d1. And if queen takes queen, rook takes bishop on e1. And again it's checkmate. So I really hope it's bishop f3. Because if it's not, then I'm gonna be very disappointed. If rook d2, bishop d5. Everything tells me that this is the right move. And then when the puzzle fails, then I'm like, oh, it makes so much more sense to play XYZ move. But let's go with bishop f3. Oh, he takes. So collaborative. Take rook e2. Collaborative. What a deep calculation by me. Wow, wow, wow. Oh, look at this. If I play with this rook, so it's a question, which rook goes to d1? If I go with this rook, he has queen takes f2. And it's a big oopsie. So we do it with this rook. Because let's say takes, king takes, bishop c5 check. He gets my queen back. But if I go with this rook, if he takes on f2, I take with the rook on f2, from f1. And that's it. Am I all right? Well, I thought it's time to stop half-assing some lines. I'm still quite lazy, but I try to be more diligent. I'm not sick or anything, don't worry about it. Everything is alright, but I'm just trying to change bad habits into good ones. But there are still glimpses of lazy, scared lion. Oh boy, I didn't calculate this. Takes, take on g7. Phew. Lucky me. Because I don't have a check. And that's it. take on g7, and that's correct. Here I push, here, here. The difference between rook a d8, okay. I don't know if there was a delay or anything, but I'm gonna show it again. So this is the puzzle. If you go rook fd8, rook fd1, then black can take on f2. And now king can take, but bishop c5 is there. You move, rook a8, and black wins. By rook a d8 you keep a defender on f2. And if queen moves, queen d8. So yeah, also for example, if rook fd1, queen f2, king h1. Now, still, queen d8 is a big threat, but bishop d5 exists. Although, is it? Is it that strong? Takes, takes, rook c1, king b6. No, Stepan isn't retired. I think he's gonna play some tournaments very soon. He's not quitting, no. I don't see him quitting anytime soon. Well, that's Kramnik. He pretends to be retired, but he's still very dangerous. Is Gotham Chess retired? I think he plays a tournament from tomorrow in Madrid. We gotta push this. On e6, king c6, bishop g6, king d6 to stop e7, and then we go. We take off. But wait a second, if you go here, here, c2, takes, here, here, it's over. Kramnik newbie. Aha, if I get my king, let's say, to c5, he's gonna play bishop g8, and this is why I have to play c3 first. Because if I push b pawn, then it's easier for him to handle my pawns. I mean, if there were no pawns on the left side, it's all the same what you do. Do you push b pawn or do you push c pawn? The king is too close, his king is too far from the pawns, and even a clumsy move like b2 would work. But since the king has to keep an eye on the e pawn, you cannot really play b2 and expect pawns to promote themselves, because the bishop will control c2 and b1, and you can't do anything. So you play c3 to play c2. And after c3, I think the only way for white to continue is to go e6. Now I have to react by king c6, keeping an eye on the pawn on e6. And then I think the biggest chance he got is to play bishop g6. And now in case I play c2 to play e7 and promote, but I'll go king d6 and my pawns are still there. I'm gonna push c2 next, and I kept his pawns under control, so yeah, just push. And imagine this being faulty. Imagine, just imagine. I'm talking yap, 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 and then just... no, it's not good. What is this? Can we attack something? Bishop e5, maybe. Michael. Hello. Oh, I'm gonna pick up all his pawns and then the bishop in the end. That's savage. You need to be always this calm when solving your puzzles. But I'm not calm. Who told you that? Who told you that? See you, Daka. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Maybe on Twitch. Stop by. So bishop e5, what does he do? f6? But we can take. On gf, there's queen g6, king h8, take on h6, go back, queen g6,